Ugh, my hair is so poofy right now because I just washed it. So I am going to just cover it up. There we go. Perfect. Product placement. Hello Internet, this is Olin from What I'm Listening To, and today we are doing yet another installment of New Editions. It is currently November 25th, 2024, and I'm sick while I edit this. And today I have a lot of things to talk about. Normally my New Editions videos are some of the shortest videos that I post, ranging from 12 to 15 minutes long, which might be the perfect length for some of you, but I do enjoy posting the occasional long video from time to time. So today I've decided to gather a good amount of new additions I am adding to the collection to do one long-winded installment. There are a lot of great things I have for you today, stuff I am very, very excited to share and discuss with you all in this video. So let's waste no more time. Let's dive right in. Starting things off, the first CD I have for you today, this is a compilation called Chamber Music, James Joyce, 1907, 1 through 36. A lot of you who are lit nerds probably know who James Joyce is, but for those of you who don't know, James Joyce was an Irish novelist, poet, and literary critic, and one of his more famous publications was a compilation of his poetry called Chamber Music. It was originally released in 1907, hence the title, and at first it was only supposed to have 34 poems, but right before the thing was published, there were 2 more poems added, making a round total of 36 poems. Again, hence the title. And this is a really cool compilation because what it is a bunch of bands taking his poems and adding music to them. So the lyrics themselves are the poems, but whatever the band wanted to do, however they were inspired by it, they would create a sound to accompany said poetry. So you have artists like Jessica Byleth, Mike Watt, Sweet Trip, Bardo Pond, and my beloved Flying Saucer Attack.
The sun is in the willow leaves and on the dappled grass.
And that's actually the reason why I bought this compilation. I'll admit, I'm not much of a poetry reader. I know who James Joyce is, but I've never really read any of his works. I bought this because I am a Flying Saucer Attack completist. See, I already have all of the studio albums the band has put out, and at this point, there are miscellaneous tracks that have appeared on random compilations, such as this one, that I'm slowly trying to collect. A lot of those tracks did appear on the vinyl exclusive Heartbeat and Complete compilation, which I own, but unfortunately, a lot of those tracks did not make it onto CD, which is annoying for me as both a CD fan and a Flying Saucer Attack fan. But there are also compilations that include exclusive Flying Saucer Attack songs that did not appear on that compilation, and that's where we have this. So I'm happy to own this CD just to have yet another exclusive Flying Saucer Attack song in my collection, but I also like a lot of the other acts on here, and again, this is exclusive stuff to this collection of music. I figured it had to be good. Okay, the next CDs I have for you today come in pairs. This is 2 CDs by a band called Catherine. Now, this is a band I have my friend Cass to thank for exposing me to. He was telling me about this band because he had been obsessed with their song Pink Floyd Poster, describing it as sad, heavy shoegaze. I, of course, had never heard of this band, so I sought out the song and was immediately in love. I don't really know how I feel about the covers of these albums. They look like really horrible 90s albums that you'd probably find in the clearance section, but that song alone is just wonderful, so I had to hear the rest of the album. Then Cass told me about the song Inchworm, which is on this album, and I loved that song too. So it quickly became a no-brainer, and I just bought both of these albums. And I listened to some of the other songs that are on both these albums, and I like them. They're not nearly as shoegazy as Inchworm and Pink Floyd Poster, but still very good. Very token 90s alt-rock sounding, very similar to Siamese Dream era Smashing Pumpkins. Shout out to Cass for exposing me to both of these. Moving right along, next up I have yet another title by the Zamrock band Witch. Now, I talked about Witch in my most recent box set video when I showed off that lovely box set that had their first 4 albums packaged in one. I also mentioned in that video that there was another compilation that had the following 2 albums packaged in one, and well, this is it. This is a great compilation too, put out by the exact same label that put out that box set. But unlike the material on that box set, it's less psychedelic, proto-punk rock sounding and more soul, funk, and disco sounding. I've talked about it many times, but African funk and disco is just so very good. And these guys just killed it. Both the records that are packaged in here are amazing. It's weird that they didn't include these albums on that box set, but I guess as far as the sound goes, it does make a little sense. I don't know. Either way, I have the box set. I now have this compilation. The only Witch thing that I don't have in my collection right now is the most recent album. I will at some point get, but until then, I will be enjoying this and said box set.
I'm so fine, I can deal without you, girl. I've been fine, I'm alright. I'm so fine.
Okay, next up, I have yet another twofer. I have 2 albums by the band The Veldt. These 2 CDs are really exciting for me to get because I got them when I saw the band perform live in San Francisco. I could not believe they were still together, let alone on tour, but they ended up booking a show at this really small venue called Hotel Utah, and well, I had to go. And it was an incredible show. The venue itself was really tiny, so much so that a crowd of 20 people felt like we were packed in. But it was a pretty decent and enthusiastic draw, and I planted myself right in front of the stage, so I saw the action up close and personal. And the frontman's charisma was amazing. He was so cool, put on such a great performance, played some classic songs, played some new songs. It was just an amazing show. And as a funny anecdote of getting these CDs, I saw them for sale at their merch table, knew I had to get them. Unfortunately, I did not have cash on me, and they did not have Venmo set up, so I ended up having to download Cash App, connect it to my bank, just so I could pay for these CDs. Totally worth it. I have the first studio album that they released, which at this point has become a collector's item, but these ones are cool because this one is some new material that they released in 2002. When I was buying it, the singer was telling me that this was recorded during lockdown, so it was sort of a weird time. And then this one is cool because it was released this year in 2024 but it was recorded in 1989, and it was produced by and features contributions by Robin Guthrie of the Cocteau Twins. So it essentially sounds like a Cocteau Twins album with a little bit of soul to it.
Don't dry your tears away.
It's an amazing album. Both albums are amazing, but this one especially is really, really good. I love this band. I think they're fantastic, completely underappreciated and underrated shoegaze. Absolutely check their material out if you have not ever heard of them, and also follow them on Instagram, and if they end up coming to your town to perform live, go see them.
I made a promise that the truth would never fail.
Next up, I have a Buckethead album. This is his album Acoustic, Shards. Now, I absolutely love Buckethead, and over the years, I've built a pretty nice collection of his albums on CD, which has been a slow process because a good amount of his CDs are really, really hard to get. A lot of his stuff was self-released with minimal quantities pressed, so when you do happen to find one, it's likely very expensive. But this one is not a rarity, and thankfully, not an expensive title. I mostly bought this one because I really, really love his albums Electric Tears and Electric Sea. It's a little less avant-garde, shred metal, and more ambient, beautiful sounding music. From my understanding, this is one that maybe is not as produced as Electric Sea and Electric Tears, but still a very mellow, pretty listen nonetheless. I mean, just looking at the track listing, there's early versions of a couple songs that I'm assuming he did shreddy versions of. And it also says solo improvisations on acoustic guitar, 1991. So yeah, more soft Buckethead, more Buckethead on CD in general. I'm enthusiastic about adding this one to the collection and zoning out to the music that's on here. Okay, next up I have yet another twofer. I have two titles by a guy named Kit Watkins. This is Thought Tones Volume 1 and Thought Tones Volume 2. Lately, I have been in a massive ambient kick. And ambient music has always been a genre that I really like, but now more than ever, I've really been listening to a lot of it. And these ones I discovered from absentmindedly flipping through the New Age section of Amoeba Music. A section that I think is completely underappreciated, where you can find a ton of gems for often dirt cheap. I found this one in the section, Thought Tones Volume 2, and was just captivated by the cover. Colorful and kind of corny, but still something that I was intrigued by. On the back, it reads, Audioscapes providing an atmosphere for creative thinking, contemplation, imagination, and other forms of direct and indirect perception. Just the most New Agey sounding thing that you could write on the back of a New Age CD. But I gave it a listen and was just blown away by it. It was exactly what that blurb described. But I would also add that some of these songs were kind of creepy sounding. Maybe not quite dark ambient sounding, but there was something about them that was kind of eerie and spooky. Like, if you put this on while walking through a sort of foggy landscape area, you would get a little freaked out. But because I like spooky shit and I love ambient music, I really enjoyed this listen. And of course, because it was volume 2, it implied there was a volume 1, so I took to the internet and ended up picking up the first volume on Discogs. It's exactly the same thing with the exact same blurb written on the back. Similar looking cover, different color scheme. Yeah, these guys, they're amazing. And as a side note, Kit Watkins was very briefly in the band Camel, the prog band. I just thought that was an interesting tidbit to throw out there. Now he's doing new age music, and that's cool too. Speaking of new age music, next up I have an amazing box set. This is Harold Budd Box. This is something I'm really thrilled to add to my collection. Harold Budd was an amazing composer of ambient, new age, and classical music. And this is a wonderful box set that collects so much of his stuff, mostly his early 80s stuff, which is all very good. I had never seen a box set like this up until now, and I just couldn't help but to grab it. Just a beautiful collection. In fact, let's take a closer look at it. Let's do the overhead camera. Here we have the Budd box in all its glory. Very, very nice packaging here. This particular copy has a couple of little dings, but that's what you get when you shop secondhand. And inside is a booklet, very thick booklet. Let's get back to that later. Let's take a closer look at all the CDs here. There's one album, and another, and another. This one's especially really good. And another, and another. This one's also very good. And another. I don't know if they're all chronologically put in that box, but that's all of them. Track listing on the back. You can get all these standalone in a jewel case packaging, but that would make this box set rather large if they were all like that. And the booklet is nice and beefy, just chock full of information here. Information about each album, which is really, really nice. Pictures. Interview by the looks of it, which is really cool. Yeah, I mean, if you're a Harold Budd fan, this is the box set to have. This is wonderful. Yeah, I'm definitely stoked I was able to find this. On that note, next up I have some experimental music. This is Gabriel Saloman's album, Movement Building. Gabriel Saloman is best known for being one half of one of my favorite noise bands ever, the Yellow Swans. In fact, I had the privilege of seeing the Yellow Swans perform in San Francisco recently. It was one of their first performances they had done in over 10 years at least. So of course, the moment I knew they were coming to the Bay Area, I had to go. And the performance itself was just amazing. It's so cool. But it inspired me to actually get some of Gabriel's solo works because I have a lot of Yellow Swan stuff on CD. I have some Pete Swanson stuff on CD, but Gabriel's stuff did not own on CD until now. And this CD is technically a compilation because Movement Building was actually 3 albums that were put out in 3 parts, Movement Building 1, 2, and 3, but on vinyl only. So the CD here collects all 3 of those records in one title on CD. So seeing the Yellow Swans live really inspired me to get this one. It had actually been on my want list on Discogs for quite some time, so the show was the catalyst. The stuff on here is a little bit more on the music, concrete, abstract side of things versus the improvisational, chaotic noise stuff that Yellow Swans do. But it's stuff that I just love. If you know me, you know that I love experimental music. It's my bread and butter. Adding this to the collection has been a long time coming, and I'm really, really excited to finally own it. And also, if you find out that the Yellow Swans are performing in your town, that is yet another show you should go see. Absolutely mind-blowing experience. Just make sure to bring ear protection. Speaking of ear protection, next up I have the newest album by Jamie XX. No, I'm just kidding, it's Merzbow. Ah yes, Merzbow. Most likely the most popular power electronics harsh noise artist around. I have most certainly talked about him in at least one other of my videos. And I have made mention that at some point I really wanted to get his album Pulse Demon on CD, which is most likely his most famous work. And well, here it is, in the flesh. I'm not entirely sure why, of all noise albums out there, this is the one people latched onto. Maybe it has something to do with the trippy cover. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that it was released on Relapse Records, which is best known for releasing metal. And maybe it has something to do with the fact that Merzbow is Japanese and there's just this interesting fascination with Japanese experimental music. I'm not sure, but what I do know is this album is notorious. But this particular CD edition is actually really interesting. So the original CD version was released sometime in the 90s, again on Relapse Records, which sadly that version is now out of print and now very expensive to get on the secondhand market. But later on in 2020, Relapse reissued the album, remastered, weirdly enough, with a bonus track on vinyl, which of course upset me because I want the CD, and I knew that if I wanted the CD, I had to get the original version, which again is expensive. But then in 2023, an Italian label called Old Europa Cafe, which specializes mostly in industrial and experimental music, reissued the remastered version on CD, which also includes that bonus track. And it's inexpensive, so well, I got it. And I don't exactly know if it's an official release. According to my research of Old Europa Cafe, it seems legit. I think they got the rights to release this on CD from Relapse. I'm not entirely sure, but the CD packaging looks really nice. It's nice and shiny. The CD looks good. It doesn't at all look handmade or poorly made. Yeah, it's a nice copy, so I think it's legit. So now I finally have this experimental gem in my collection. So random that an Italian label put it out, but hey, I'll take it. I finally have this on CD. Alright, internets, we are down to the final CD in this video, and this is the one I am most excited to be sharing with you all today. This is a CD copy of TV Girl's album, French Exit.
But if you're too drunk to drive and the music is right, she might let you stay, but just for the night.
TV Girl is an amazing alternative pop band from San Diego, and they have garnered quite the following over the years, to the point where every time I'm at work, I get some kid inevitably asking me if we have anything by them on record, which they do technically have records out there, but they were released in very limited quantities because they're not on a label. In fact, everything they've made has been released independently. Even on their Bandcamp, every single album of theirs has been set to name your price, so you can technically get their entire discography for free if you wanted it. But as far as physical media goes, that's a different story. Again, all of the records that they released were pressed in very limited quantities and have already sold out from them, so if you want a copy, you're gonna have to get that secondhand. And some of them are a little bit more expensive than others, but overall, it's gonna be a lot more money than what they were charging for when they were putting them out themselves. Which brings me to the CDs. Now, obviously, there are CDs of their albums that exist. I'm holding one right now, but only the first 2 albums were ever released on CD, and they were only exclusive to Japan. I'm not entirely sure the background as to why that is, but that makes getting those CD copies very, very difficult to get. I would honestly go out on a limb to say that even if you went to Japan to try to get the CD, I don't think you could just walk into any record store and expect them to have it. It seems like this is a collectible even in the country that put it out. And yet, I have a copy, and I am so stoked. This album is just absolutely wonderful. Admittedly, I didn't really know too much about the band until I caught their set at the most recent Outside Lands, where I quickly became a fan, to the point where I just dove right into their discography. I listened to basically everything that they put out and just fell madly in love with their stuff. So when it came down to figuring out if they had CDs, that's when I learned the hard truth that those first 2 albums were only released in Japan and they were very hard to get. There were listings for this album on Discogs that were going for outrageous amounts of money, so I put it in my want list, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited, and eventually someone listed a copy for a pretty reasonable price, so I jumped and I grabbed it. And I'm so stoked that I did, because this is a beautiful release. It includes the 12 tracks from the French Exit album, plus a bunch of other exclusive tracks, making this a 17-track release. Yeah, I'm so happy to own this. In fact, fuck it, overhead camera. Sheesh! Look at that. That is just glorious. Oh my god. This is just wonderful. I had to put it in an outer sleeve to preserve it, mostly because I guess you could call this an obi strip. It's a really unique obi strip. It's something I've never seen. Track listing on one side here with bonus material, bonus songs for Japan. So these are really exclusive to this Japanese version. But when you remove the obi, you see the album art in all its glory. It's packaged in a really tall digipack. So if you have kind of narrow shelves, it might be tricky to squeeze in there. There is a little something inside here. It's not much, just a little pamphlet, all in Japanese. No idea what any of that says. I'd have to use Google Translate, take a picture of that, see what that all says. I'll do that another time. And the disc itself is housed in this cloth here, which I feel like you only really see with Japanese releases. Yeah. This is like such a come up. I'm so stoked to have this. At some point I will hopefully obtain a copy of the album after this one that only got a Japanese release, but until then I'm still very happy about owning this one. Alrighty then, Internet, that does it for me. Thank you all so very much for sticking around and listening to me ramble about CDs. If you enjoyed what you saw, then please consider hitting that subscribe button. It'll show me the support, and I'll love your face for it. And if you've added any new additions to your collection, I would love to know what they are, whether they're CDs, cassettes, or records. Tell me what they are in the comment section down below. And you can also follow me on Instagram for even more music. I post a new album on there semi-frequently, talk a little bit about it, and it gives you a bit of an insight of what else is in my collection. Thanks again for watching, y'all. Until then, this is Olin from What I'm Listening To signing out. Goodbye.